Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hi everyone, Spencer here from nichepursuits.com, and welcome to my podcast. Today I have Chris Guthrie on as a guest. Welcome, Chris.
Hey Spencer, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Chris Guthrie is a fellow resident of Washington State, so it's great to have him here. He's from Seattle, Washington, and is actually one of the few internet marketers that I've actually had a chance to meet in person. We met last summer while I was in Seattle for a quick trip. I lived just a few hours outside of Seattle, and I was headed over there anyways, so we were able to meet up, and it was great. Chris has a blog over at MakeMoneyOnTheInternet.com, and he's known for his success with websites monetized with Amazon Associates. And he recently sold a site for over 6 figures, and now he's focusing more on both building new websites and buying existing websites. So Chris, it's good to have you on the show, and I'm going to just have a few questions in regards to some of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's this year I've had a new focus, but we'll talk about that for sure. So, yeah.
No, that's great. First off, I mean, how did you get started really with your online business? What drew you online? What made you decide that building websites is the way to go?
Yeah, so actually, I'm a pretty hardcore gamer, so I'm always on Xbox Live and playing games after hours, after work hours. When I first made the switch from full-time into full-time with websites, I did a few gaming during the day, but realized that's not going to help. But anyways, I'm a big gamer, so back during the GameCube when that was first out, so that kind of dates it a while, someone had this video game website that I was reading, and it was about the Nintendo GameCube, and I noticed these little things at the bottom of the site that said ads by AdSense, or ads by Google, or whatever they said back then. And I asked the guy, I said, what are those and how much money do you make from them? And he said, those are just some ads, and I make, $2 a day from them. And at the time I was like, okay, well that's $2, but that's still money that he's getting just from doing something he's interested in. So that's really kind of, as soon as I heard about that you could make money with these ads, I was like, I got to find a way to do it as well. And so, being the gamer that I am, I actually, when I was in college, I created this video using clips from Halo of just me shooting people and timed it to music and everything. I had a video editing class. It was like a double assignment. I could use it as an assignment.
Nice.
And so I used that as like the kind of a launching point for this video game forum, and then that forum was something that I used, and I put AdSense on there, and so I started with game sites, and that's kind of how I got started. But that site doesn't get it's pretty much dead now, but that's how I got started.
No, that's very interesting. So if we look at the timeline there, I'm trying to think of when GameCube was around. I mean, but that's what, 2004 or 5, something like that, or?
Yeah, the first site that I started was gamingvids.com with a Z. It's still live, so if people wanted to check it out, they can see. But it was just a forum. People would show, they talk about different video games, and so yeah, it was kind of the first site that I created where I really made money with it and tried for it, and that was in around 2005 or 2006, one of the two.
Okay. Now that's kind of interesting because it sounds like essentially your first website that you put up actually made some money and did okay.
Yeah, I mean, I did have one site that was before that on the Nintendo NES, and it was like classicnes.com. I wouldn't suggest going to that URL now. I just remember it because I got hosting from this guy that I didn't know about these huge major hosting companies. I just did a search and ended up buying hosting from someone. Found out, it was like, get a free domain name when you register for hosting, and then he just took my domain name when his hosting company failed. So I mean, if you're listening and you're a beginner, then everyone starts from somewhere, and we all kind of make mistakes, and that was mine. Is not going with a reputable hosting company in the beginning, and so that was the first site. But then after that, it was the video game forum.
Mm-hmm.
So
So that's kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting to maybe spend so much time, on the first site that you built here, but I find it interesting that you actually were able to get, sounds like a pretty decent amount of traffic, at least enough to, make some money. How were you able to market that website? How were you getting your traffic?
Yeah, so it was a forum, and the main idea is I was like, well, I got to have a way to get traffic, and at the time I didn't really know much about SEO, and I certainly didn't know much about domain choices. I don't know why I would end it with a Z, but I did, and so I released this one video through Halo, and it was really popular, and I started getting these friend requests on Xbox Live and all these messages from people saying they saw it on these different sites. I don't even think YouTube was around at the time, but then someone posted one of my videos on YouTube a while ago, and I didn't even know what it was. But I basically just created this video. I spent a lot of time making a cool video, and there was another really large forum. And I said, hey, can you post this on your forum? And I went to all the other Halo sites, and they posted on their sites. And that kind of helped send some traffic to my site. Mm-hmm. And so because it's a forum, and starting a forum, if you're ever going to consider doing it, is really difficult in the beginning. And so you almost have to have some type of a major marketing event to really get any traction, or you have to have traffic from, say, a blog to try and, funnel it towards your forum. But I just made like 30 accounts, and I was on there talking to myself because no one comes into a forum and they're going to register if they see nothing there. So I was talking to myself for the first, few weeks. But then after that, it was fine. People were there and talking.
So if you've got a split personality, that helps.
Yeah, I was thinking, am I sounding like myself? Or, I mean, some people might think, oh, that's dishonest, but it's really just, you have to get that initial amount of people on the forum, and you can go get your friends to do it or whatever. But
yeah, in a way, it's posting content. As long as you're maybe asking and answering relevant, good questions, it's good content, for the forum, anyways.
Yeah.
So, do you mind if I ask roughly, maybe how much you were making at its peak, that particular site?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was running this site when I was still back in college, so years ago now, but at its peak, it was getting 500,000 page views a month, which is a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what really took me a lot longer down this path of trying to make money online, and kind of why I started my blog and why I tell people that whatever they're doing is dumb if they ask me. Because, I only made, at the peak, $500 a month from AdSense.
Okay.
And, it's good money, and it was paying my rent because I was renting, 4 or 5 other guys at the time. But, 500,000 page views, that's certainly not enough money.
Yeah, no, that is. I mean, that's definitely a lot of traffic, but I think that's sort of the case with forum sites, is that, it's a low click-through rate type of site and things like that. So that's actually pretty interesting to hear that one of your first websites, I mean, $500 a month, I think a lot of people out there would be, happy with that. But, was it that website that made you decide that, hey, this business, building websites online, really could be a real success? Or was there some other breakthrough or something else that made you realize that your business could be a success?
I mean, I think it was really just that. It's like I had some success making money with the sites. Unfortunately, what didn't really click for me was thinking, how else are people making money online, and are there easier ways? So, I mean, I still kind of spent a lot more time after that site with gaming forums. And really, I mean, there's no worse target market because, a lot of the audience might be under 18, so it's like advertisers aren't really targeting them that much. Well, maybe they are, but through AdSense, they're not clicking ads and buying things. Unfortunately, I didn't think, okay, well, how can I apply this to other types of niches? So it wasn't until, trying to do these sites, and for a while, I was, off at Microsoft doing a full-time job game testing and then doing sales, and then I was just kind of thinking, how can I really make money with sites? And that's kind of when I thought about, product review websites, because it's much easier to sell something when you're just reviewing it, and that's kind of what sent me into Amazon in early 2009. So, So I mean, I really think I wasted a lot of my time, and could have. I mean, right now I'm making good money, but I probably could be making considerably more if I'd really grasped the opportunity that was available.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for all of us. If we could turn back the clock and sort of know what we know now from the mistakes we made, and that's sort of the way it was with me too. I made mistakes and sort of treaded water for 2 or 3 years as well. Now, so you decided to move into building product-related websites, review-type websites. Did you have a few small successes before you created your larger site? Because I want to get into the site that you recently sold for over 6 figures. Were there some other sites that you had, or did you move right into creating this larger site that you eventually sold off?
I was building out some other smaller sites, but basically, for people listening, and even you even can relate to this as well. Is when you're first starting out, odds are you have a full-time job already, or if you're in school, then maybe you have extra time available. If that's the case, you should be getting on it right now. But when I was doing this, I was still in a full-time job, so it would just be like I come home, I'm working, and then some of my friends hate on me or something for oh, I can't go out right now, or can't go to dinner, or I don't know. I wouldn't, I'd still hang out with the friends, but sometimes they'd be like, I got to work on this stuff, because I knew that there was money to be made and that I needed to try and do it. So I was doing other sites and having some success with some of those as well. But the bigger site, once I started seeing more success, I was like, okay, well, if this one's making me this much money, I'm going to pour in that much more effort, and then it just kind of built on itself. So I still had, I still run the smaller sites because I like to kind of diversify, but that's kind of what I did with the bigger site.
So it sounds actually somewhat of a similar strategy that I've taken, in that I, have essentially created, several websites, and maybe I've built more, than the normal person would, but built several websites, and the ones that do well, I put more attention into. And so it sounds like maybe you had a few, and you saw one of your sites doing quite well, so you started adding more content and putting a lot more effort and energy into that. Is that basically what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of around the technology sector, so I was like, okay, well, this is a newer thing. I'm just going to try, and it was a blog, so I thought, I'll just try and be the absolute best source on the web for this specific niche. And so that was kind of my real attitude. Is once it started making more money, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So, I mean, I even flew to the Consumer Electronics Show to try and, cover the event live there one time. So, it was really like a matter of scaling the effort with the site as it started making more money.
Mm-hmm. Now, was this a site that you created all on your own, added all your own content, marketed on your own? Was it all just you, or did you have people helping you out?
No, I did everything actually for the site. It was really kind of because I was doing the Amazon stuff and a few other AdSense sites that I had that were starting to make money, and that was in early 2009, and then by mid-2009, I was making several $1,000s a month with Amazon and AdSense and all that. So, and then, fast forward a few more months, in October 15th or the 17th, I can't remember exactly. I always kind of try and remember because it's the day I got let go from my job.
Right.
And that's when I started spending more time, and that's why I went and flew out to the Consumer Electronics Show. I was like, well, I'm making more money than my day job with these websites that I have, and this site's a bigger one, so I'm just going to try and, dive in head first and really kind of try and spend even more time on these things. So.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like losing your job was kind of a blessing in disguise, in that, you already had a project that was earning money, and this just gave you more time to focus on that.
Yeah, I was upset at first because I thought I was a pretty good, I thought I was a good employee.
Yeah.
But I even told, I was in sales, and so I told the outside sales guy that I was working with, because we were pretty close in terms of, we're talking about different deals and everything. And I told him that I was doing these websites on the side, and then when he had a kid, he was like, yeah, I'm going to need you to spend more time at the office. And I'm like, why would I do that when I'm making more money on my side? So it was one of those things where, I would still be spending all this time at the office, 50 hours a week or so, and then he'd want me to work even more. But anyways, it was definitely a blessing in disguise, because after getting fired, I pretty much tripled my income that next year full time for myself. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And I do have some other questions, but I want to ask a couple more on this larger website. And can we mention the URL of that site?
Yeah, it's netbookreviews.com.
Okay.
I can't really go into like strategies of how, to make the exact same site,
Sure.
Nor would I even suggest anyone to try and copy it, because it has the years of history of me basically having it be, a core focus of my job.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I mean, a site like that isn't something that you can build overnight. It's something that's going to take years to get where it is. So you started the site in, was it 2008, did you say? Or
early January 2009, basically.
January 2009. And then you actually sold the site when?
I sold it in late 2010, actually. So that was
so about
November 2010.
So about 2 years.
Yeah, a little under 2 years, yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. And can you tell us just a little bit about how this site, selling the site went, how you found somebody to purchase the site? Give us a few details on that.
Yeah, so I went to, after I lost, I was making all this money from my various sites, with that site being included, and I thought, I need to get out there and try and meet more people and try and see how else I can really accelerate my business. And so I went to Shoe Money's event. It's Elite Retreat. It was like a $5,000 event, so it was a much higher end event, but at the time I was still working my day job when I went, so I went to New York, took some vacation time off to go to New York and go to this event. And then 2 weeks later I got back and got fired. So I was like, dang, I just spent $5,000 on this event. And I thought, it's not a big deal because I still have my day job. I can use it as a business expense.
Right.
But so from the people I met there, they were almost all at a much higher level than I was. So I was actually able to email one of them afterwards and say, hey, I know you've sold some websites before. Do you have any recommendations? And then he referred me to an investment banker that he's used to both buy and sell sites for. And they're great guys, Founders Investment Banking. It's like foundersib.com. And so basically that's how I found the investment bankers that helped sell the site. And then, because they're investment bankers and they're brokers and all that, they have access to people that you wouldn't really have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of I went to that conference, met people that were at a higher level than I was, which is something I'd advise anyone else to do, is to always try and be looking at, how you can get to the next level and try and meet with the people that are at that level to help you. And so I did that, went to that conference, met that person, then I did that. And then since that time, I've had a few potential things that I was going to work out with the brokers as well that would have been really lucrative too, which kind of all come back to going to that event and meeting people that were at a higher level than me.
Interesting, yeah. So definitely networking helped you out quite a bit, get the connections that you needed to make a sale like you did. That's good. We could probably spend the whole podcast on that website. There's actually quite a few other details that I'd like to ask about, but I have a few other things because I know you're working on new projects now, and I want to kind of get into that. So just this one maybe transition question sort of related, to your old website. If somebody's trying to build a large website like you did, or, trying to start, something similar online, what advice do you have for somebody building a brand new website that wants it to grow it into something large?
I think the most important aspect really is to look at the site and then also think about a true marketing plan. How are you going to take this site and build it along each level to the next stage in terms of its income growth and traffic growth? Because oftentimes what I see people do is they'll build a site and they think, okay, I'm going to make this an authority site, but they don't have no idea in terms of what a marketing plan might look like to really kind of take the site to the next level. So I can't talk about a ton of the strategies I did, but what I was basically doing was looking at what other sites were doing in this space, and I thought, I'm going to do one step further than what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try and break the news on this netbook or whatever faster than these people are. So it was kind of a lot of that, really. And I think it takes a lot of hustle. I was calling companies, getting them to send me the netbooks so I could review them, and so all that type of stuff is important. If you were going to try and take a site and really build it up into an authority, you got to be able to. It's going to be a pretty hard task. That said, you can certainly do it in the time that you have after your day job if you really focus on that one thing. And the problem is that most people, they hear one thing and they're like, oh, okay, I can make money doing that, or it's iPhone apps. Even I get distracted. Like someone's telling me about their iPhone apps making all this money, and I'm like, oh, I got to make an iPhone app. And then $1,200 later, I learned a lesson and I'm not going to make an iPhone app. Which, I mean, I think you can still do it. It's just, sometimes, especially, again, if you have a day job, you got to really focus on what you're going to work on, and so.
That actually is some great advice. I think that it's key, like you mentioned, is focus. Just determining maybe an overall strategy that you want to pursue. I mean, maybe people out there don't want to build just one big website. In my example, I build lots of little websites, but that was my focus. I focused exclusively on that one particular strategy. I implemented that strategy, and it worked well for me. I can see, on the flip side, just like you did, that building one large website, you need to be engrossed in that one website. And if you truly want to be an authority, it sounds like, you need to do a lot of, the legwork. You need to be on top of the industry, essentially, to make it a great, valuable resource. So that's some great advice. Now, if you had, let's take a scenario. If you had $50,000 to invest in new websites today, would you go out and buy new websites, or would you build your own from scratch?
I think that's a good question. There's a couple things I would mention. So a lot of why I believe that the sites I've been doing more recently and the sites that I've been buying have been successful is because I have this back history of failing so many times,
right.
More times than most, I think, that has helped in terms of making sure the stuff that I do work on is going to be successful. And of course, some of them don't hit and they're not successful, but I'm much better at having them succeed now than when in the past. And so I think with $50,000, I think I would probably actually start just building your own sites on the assumption that I don't have any knowledge on how to actually do it. Because I think if you just have a lot of money but not really a lot of knowledge on how the ins and outs of websites make money, then it can be dangerous to just go out and buy sites. That said, if you can find good brokers that can help you buy sites that are actually worth buying, that they've done the due diligence for and helped you, then that can help. But it is dangerous to just hop onto Flippa or whatever marketplace is and then just be like, oh, I'm going to buy the first site that says it's making this much money without really being able to tell. Because there's when you're buying sites, you're looking at doing due diligence would be like looking to see what types of terms that it's ranking for, using like a tool like SEMrush, using compete.com, free tool, to see how much traffic they're getting and if that kind of lines up with what they're saying from Google Analytics. Getting on a Skype call with the person and like having them walk you through the back end of the site, etc. All those, and then even just like looking at the way they have their ads placed. Do you think you can improve them? Do they have an email list? Is it possible to create some type of a ebook or some type of a product related to this and sell it? All those things are possible because even when you're buying sites, people often get caught up in, at least in the internet marketing space, where they think, oh, that's the only place people really create products and sell. Well, no, quite the opposite. There's a lot more money to be made selling information type products and et cetera outside the space. Even if you look at like The Truth About Abs, which would be a good example, the ClickBank product, that guy makes like 7 figures a year just helping people get better abs. So
right. I
know it's a fitness space and maybe it's not the best example, but there are other ones like How to Jump Higher. I know there's a Jump Higher guy, but anyway, so I'm kind of rambling, I guess, a bit, but I would say if you kind of understand the ins and outs of what it takes to make money with a website, and you can identify where a site can be improved with your effort or through people that you can hire to help, then it might be worth buying. It's just important to recognize that it's easy to invest money in a website and potentially get hosed because websites are so risky just by their nature, because if they get traffic from Google and Google changes something, then all of a sudden you're host.
Right.
That's also where they sell for a lot lower multiple than any other type of investment vehicle, like a real estate property for rental, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's some great details there. So it sounds like you would lean towards, if somebody is inexperienced, you would recommend that they actually build their own websites and had some money to invest. Whereas if they're more experienced, such as yourself, and done this before, that maybe then would be a good time to go out and buy some websites.
Yeah, I certainly think it helps to. It's just kind of the same thing. For example, my parents had pushed me to try and think about business. I don't even know if they pushed me that much, but anyways, I was doing stocks in like 6th grade with my money. They were using their account because I wasn't 18 yet, and I was investing in these companies and I was making money because the market was in general going up. And then the late 90s came along. I was like, oh, look at these internet companies. I should invest in those because the internet is the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, flash forward a few, maybe it's even just a few months, my drugstore.com stock is worth $1. So it's kind of like the same thing, where if you just kind of hop into something and you don't really have a lot of knowledge about it, you could end up losing your shirt a little bit. And so I think it's important to really kind of, whatever, in anything really, is to make sure that if you want to do it, really dive into it and make sure you understand it before you kind of try and do it all.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I would also say that if somebody does have $50,000 in this hypothetical situation, I wouldn't recommend that they spend it all really quickly building new websites either. I would maybe take a very small portion of that and try your hand at maybe a few websites if they're very inexperienced. If they're experienced, of course they can do whatever they want, build new websites or buy sites. But yeah.
And one thing I'd add too is that if you do have a lot of money to invest, because I talk to people all the time that they're successful in their professional world and they're just looking at some other way to make money, then certainly even just picking a topic based on something related to your job or what you're interested in, and having kind of, if you wanted to go the authority style site route, then one way you could do it is, you help out with some of the content, but you're hiring people to do the content as well.
Right.
So it's not just all you, but then, that way you're not just, because I wouldn't want to say you're going to have to spend all this work to be able to figure out what all it takes, because there's a lot of stuff that can be outsourced, and without really even compromising the integrity of the website you're trying to build.
Right. No,
so
exactly.
I wouldn't, yeah.
So I know that recently you've been buying more sites yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about, why you're buying sites and what you look for when you're buying a site?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that in 2012 I was thinking, I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to focus on tracking my numbers better on like a monthly and quarterly basis, just like I was back in my sales job. So it's funny because my old sales friends say I've come full circle. But so part of that was I was just thinking about scaling, and you can certainly build sites and scale, but what's also good is being able to just take your money and leverage it into buying something that someone's already spent, several years or working on, and then they've taken it to the level that they want to go, and either they have all their chips in one basket and they want to exit, so I can buy the site from them, and then I can take it and then either run it and see all the things that I might be able to improve based on my past experiences of improving sites, etc. And so, so I'll do, and that was the main reason why, is that I was like, I can make money building websites. I built sites and sold them. I've built small sites and made money with them, and they still sit there. But, what are some other challenges that I can do, and how else can I make money with websites? And so buying sites was kind of the main thing that I was thinking about doing. Mm-hmm. And it's still, there are, and the main reason why I like it is that there's a lot of opportunity, because, most people, you would never look at like a traditional newsletter, like an investment type journal or newspaper, etc. They never talk about someone buying websites as a way that they're making money. Whereas, you hear people saying that they'll be talking about domain names, and people that bought domain names, they make money. So it's kind of like you kind of know that's been passed a little bit, the domain name thing.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of why I went into it. And also just because I know I spent a lot of time building out some good websites, and I know other people have as well about different topics they're passionate about. And so they get to the point they want to sell, then I'm certainly happy to buy, and I can leverage the capital that I developed through my business, and ultimately it's just to try and scale. I mean, I'm still working out of my house, but I think I'd like to kind of break out a bit and start to hire some people as well. So
yeah, no, it's a great purchasing websites is a great way to leverage both your existing knowledge and the additional cash that you have on hand, because building your own website, it can take years or months to build it up to a level that has some decent income coming in. So it totally makes sense from an investment perspective if you're able to purchase something that has an existing cash flow, and particularly if you're able to change some things on the website to improve the amount it's earning each month, you can increase the return on your investment quite a bit. Now, as far as where you're buying websites, what would you say is the best place to look for those?
I kind of do a little of both. Originally, I wasn't looking as much on Flippa because I always just assumed that it was too picked over. But I've talked to a few people that are still buying sites on Flippa and buying pretty good ones. So I'm kind of retaking another look at it. Really, it's just a matter of where do I want to direct my attention to for the day. And so sometimes it's going out hunting for sites, and in that aspect, it's kind of like door-to-door sales, where I would do the things that I would normally do where I'm building a site, like keyword research, market research, determining if there's too much competition to really try and beat them, or what it would take to beat them in the SERPs, etc. Mm-hmm. And so then sometimes I'll just contact people and say, hey, I see you have this site. Would you be interested in selling? And then I get people that will just not reply because, again, it's a numbers game. Right. And I'll get some people that say $1 million, and I'm like, okay, there's no way your site's worth $1 million. Some people get upset at me, slam the door in the face, kind of like it is kind of feel like a door-to-door sometimes.
Right.
I had one guy say, how do you people keep finding me?
That's funny.
But then, I found a site, that I bought for $500 from a guy, and he hadn't updated it in 6 months. It was back when I was doing some more review sites, and I was thinking about, what is a review site I could build out. And I bought it from him for $500. Hadn't been updated in 6 months, so that's why I knew I could probably contact him and he would be okay with selling it. And put some Amazon links on it, some AdSense, and that winter holiday, because I bought it in the summer, it had made about $3,000 or $4,000 for me. So
nice.
Yeah, and then like another example, I bought one from just another blogger that mentioned, I'm looking to sell my site, but I don't want to do the auction process. Do you know anyone? And I was like, I'm looking at buying sites. So I bought that. It was a crafting site. That one's copycatcrafts.com if people wanted to look at that. And bought that site about it was almost 10 months ago now. But I bought it for $4,000. It was making $150 a month. So on the face of it, you think that's a pretty high multiple to buy a site at. But I could see that it was getting, 250,000 page views a month, and it wasn't monetized very well. So all I did was just improve the monetization, continue to pay someone else to write the content, and then that site was paid off in a 7-month time period. And now it's just several $100s a month of income that the site's making for basically no work, I guess.
Nice. So would you say that is one of the main things you look for when you're buying a site, is maybe high traffic, low monetization, or poor monetization on the site? Is that one of the key things you're looking at?
Yeah, that's certainly one thing. And also, I'll mention, if someone says potential in a listing, that's usually like a like a warning word. Yeah, there's lots of potential. It's just kind of like, if you're looking for a house and your real estate agent shows you something and the roof's falling in and it has a lot of potential or charm.
Right.
So it's something you kind of got to be aware of. But, I'll look for a true potential where it's like they clearly knew how to make a site. And even using that earlier example, she had she knew that there was more she could do to the site, but it was just something that she built kind of on the side. But she wanted to focus on her main network of sites, which was getting, close to 2 million pages a month. So
Makes sense.
it was just a matter of, I don't want to focus on this anymore. I need to get out. And that's what some people do. Lots of times when I'm buying sites, that's a lot of it, is people like, I bought a site from someone that basically was like, I can't take working from home anymore. I need to not do it anymore. So he went and got a new job, but I bought the site from him. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so there's a lot of those opportunities, and then finding the sites to buy is certainly the most difficult aspect of it, is finding a good site worth buying. And so it can take a lot of time, and that's something that I'm looking at, finding a way to outsource, whether by telling people that if you find me a site that I buy, I'll give you a percentage of the total sale price or something like that, or just finding people to go out and paying them to contact people for me, and then I'll take over when it gets to the final negotiations. But
yeah, because I could definitely see that would be very time-consuming if you have to contact several website owners before you get any interest at all. So it can be, sort of a hunting game for quite a while, I'm sure. So it sounds like you're interested in sites for sure that are not strictly for the cash flow, for example. I mean, you want sites that you can sort of revamp and rework and increase the income quite a bit. Whereas I know that there are other sort of strictly investors out there that they just want to buy a portfolio of sites, do nothing, and just collect the dividends or the income each month.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that might even be a business model in and of itself.
Right.
It's just finding people with a lot of money so I don't have to spend my own capital buying sites and then hiring the team of people that manages them. That's something I've considered too. But I think that lately too, some of the sites I bought that they're on the lower end, I've been burned either by different Google updates, and so that's kind of why this year especially, I'm only buying sites for $10,000 or more. Mm-hmm. And so I bought one for $10,000 in January, and I wanted to buy a few more, but they didn't work out in the last few months. And so this quarter I've got to spend some more time because I have a goal to buy at least $100,000 worth of sites in 2012. And then with that being to just basically, I'm buying them for both the potential that they can be improved, but also if they're bundled to be resold later, which is one option, but it's tough if they're in different niches because then they kind of just sold separately.
Right.
But I mean, even just buying for the cash flow is a good practice too, because if you can have someone to write the content for them and it costs less than the site makes and it has good solid foundation, then it's not a bad strategy.
Right, and just to, again, clarify, you aren't, or at least up to this point, you haven't bought any of those sites off of Flippa. These are all sites that you've either, contacted the owner on your own, or they maybe contacted you through your blog or something like that?
Yeah, but I should add, too, that it's partly because I've just been so paranoid. I think I'm probably overly paranoid because I have a blog where I talk about how I make money and people know that I make, relatively good money, I guess. I'm always kind of probably have an irrational fear of people finding what I'm looking at buying. And so I know that if people go on Flippa, then they can see my name on there.
Right.
And so I kind of thought, I can either go with an unknown name and no picture, where it might be difficult to convince a seller that I'm a legit buyer, or I can just stick with my name and go on the idea that if I sell something that people kind of know more about me and that I'm more legitimate than perhaps another seller. So I kind of went with that additional strategy, and so that's kind of why I haven't been buying sites. Mm-hmm. It's because of this irrational fear over maybe it's irrational, I don't know. People always like to copy sites, so that's kind of why
right.
I'd advise never to tell anyone, but I just do it sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, so, well, maybe it's not irrational. I mean, have you had any experiences in the past where you've noticed that people have either copied a site that you had made public or somehow they found out about one of your websites through your blog?
Definitely. Yeah, I have a few sites that, like one that I had mentioned inside a course that I was selling, an Amazon course. Mm-hmm. And that site, I continued to rank for it, number one position for even throughout most of the Google changes. It was about 18 months. And then finally, enough people had seen the video before someone spent with maybe some more SEO expertise started to maybe not necessarily more expertise than me, I don't know, but they just feel like I'm going to get that niche. Yeah, they're like, because they know just from looking at my numbers, I'm saying, here's a site that I have and this is how much it's made. And so they know immediately that they can just go and build the same site.
Right.
And so that's why I have to have 2 dedicated servers with websites and different AdSense and different company names, and they're all on different servers. And
right.
And
yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's kind of one of those catch-22s being a blogger, I guess, is because you want to be as public as you can about the information that you're sharing. But unfortunately, there are, and I've experienced this myself, where people have found, websites that I've created, even though I never, mentioned them, directly on my site, where they do just, what they've done with your website. They try to outrank, and it affects, real earnings that, we're trying to bring in. So it's one of those things, I totally understand your fears about, public auctions on Flippa and things like that. People do know who you are, and there are people out there that unfortunately will try to copy or do other things to what you're doing as well. But So, for the most part, that's some good resources that you gave us as far as strategies that people can go out and buy their own websites, either through contacting owners. They can do it through Flippa, of course, and any other advice that you give for people that are trying to buy websites.
Yeah, and I think that I should add too is that the Flippa thing, you can certainly go on and buy sites, and if you aren't out there advertising how much money you're making, and that's actually that's kind of why I've stopped doing income reports, because I don't want people to know, look, I'm making X thousands of dollars a month from this source. Then people will find the sites that I have and then connect the sources and then try and do the same thing. Again, it's probably a little too much of a worry about what other people are doing, but it's still something I know that even from your own examples and from past conversations we've had, that it's certainly worth making sure you aren't out there with a bullhorn or something.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you're drawing attention to something, people take notice. And so, it's sort of one of those things, if there's any aspiring bloggers out there, that just be aware of, the potential out there for people to, try to, people are out there trying to make money. And of course, if they see others being successful, they're going to try to replicate that any way that they can.
Yeah, and one thing I'll finally add too is just I spoke with someone that had a site ranking for a very lucrative keyword, and I contacted him. It was related to a site that I had, and I said, why don't you have your face on there and try and do this whole personal branding thing and try and have this aspect. And what he said to me is something that I think is really valuable, especially if you're thinking about doing a blog, talking about making money online, etc. As he said, I don't care about being famous. All I want is to make money. He told me, and he kind of showed a few things because I kind of talked to him for a while, that he certainly is making a considerable amount of money, and he doesn't care about going to the conferences and speaking there. And there are a lot of people that will never go up in front of a public audience and say, this is how much money I've made from this project, or you should listen to me and read my blog.
Right.
But oftentimes they're the ones making a considerable amount of money doing the things that they're just not telling anyone.
Yep. No, I think that there's a lot of listeners probably out there that's sort of the situation they want to be in. They want to be sort of behind the curtain, doing their thing, and maybe nobody else knows about it. So there definitely are a lot of people out there doing that for sure. So, Chris, maybe you can tell us about any new projects that you have going on, anything you have planned that you'd like the listeners to be aware of? Yeah,
the new projects, I think I've started, even kind of with the 2012 and the idea of scaling, is that for the past several years that I've been in this business, I continually run into problems that I experience that I believe can be solved through software solutions. And so that's why, even we partnered on a theme through nichewebsitetheme.com, and I've had plugins built like an Amazon plugin, easyazon.com. And so those types of projects are things that I've been working on this year, is just creating software to solve a lot of the headaches that I had in my own business, which if I was having them, and people were doing similar stuff to what I was doing, then I assumed that they'd have them too. So those are some of the other things that I'm doing, and probably the best way to keep track of what I'm up to is just through my blog, makemoneyontheinternet.com, and I'm on Twitter at Chris Guthrie. So, yeah.
Great. No, thanks for that. I'll post some of those resources to some of the projects that you're working on. Obviously, we're working on the niche website theme together. But, no, that it totally makes sense that you see a problem in your own business or a way that you can do things more efficiently. There's likely to be lots of other people out there having the same problem. So it makes a lot of sense to be able to work on new projects that help both you and other people out as well. So any parting words that you'd like to leave for people listening in?
No, I think I'm just glad you're able to have me on, and I hope that most of all that people just kind of either listen to the success or failures that I've had, and also to yours as well, Spencer, and then they just decide on a course of action and start going for it. And I know that you're available on email, I'm sure, and I am too, so if people wanted to send me an email after this, or if they have a site they want to sell,
there you go.
Go ahead and contact me. It's Chris at makemoneyontheinternet.com. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing. Yep, Chris's blog is over at makemoneyontheinternet.com. Chris, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. I appreciate your time very much.